Have you ever felt like you've lived before? A flicker of memory that doesn't belong to this life. A face you recognize, though you've never met. Or a fear buried deep that has no origin in your present story. What if those weren't coincidences? What if you're remembering? Once, the belief in reincarnation was not fringe. It wasn't a cult. It wasn't whispered about in secret. It was embraced by early Christian mystics, ancient philosophers, and entire civilizations long before the modern era began to rewrite the narrative. But something changed, something deliberate. Tonight, we're going to explore a truth hidden in plain sight. Why reincarnation was removed from Western religion. Not because it lacked evidence, not because it clashed with doctrine, but because it gave you too much power. This isn't just a historical journey, it's a descent into forgotten mysticism, theological censorship, and the fear that lies at the heart of organized control. We'll explore who erased it, why they did it, and what was lost when the West abandoned the idea that our souls are eternal travelers. By the end of this video, you won't just question what you've been told about life and death. You'll start to remember what you already know. Let's begin. The doctrine that once was and was buried. Long before Western religion was codified into the rigid structures we know today, reincarnation was not only present, it was central to many spiritual worldviews. In ancient Egypt, the soul, or ka, was believed to undergo multiple lives in its pursuit of ma'at, cosmic balance. The Greeks spoke of metempsychosis, the transmigration of souls. Great thinkers like Pythagoras and Plato treated reincarnation not as speculation, but as fact. Plato described the soul's journey between lives in vivid, almost haunting detail, claiming that true knowledge was remembered, not learned, because we've all lived before. Even in early Christianity, traces of reincarnation ripple beneath the surface. The Gnostic sects, mystical offshoots of early Christian thought, taught that the soul was trapped in a cycle of rebirth until it achieved gnosis, divine knowledge. And then there's Origen, a church father from the 3rd century, who openly proposed the pre-existence of souls. He believed that our actions in previous lives shaped our current conditions, echoes of karmic law. But here's where it gets interesting and dark. The Council of Constantinople in 553 AD condemned Origen's teachings as heresy, not because they were untrue, but because they were uncontrollable. If people believed they were eternal beings, responsible for their own spiritual evolution, then where was the leverage of fear, of sin and salvation, of one lifetime to get it right? Reincarnation made spiritual authority personal, and that terrified the gatekeepers. What followed was a slow, methodical erasure, the rewriting of sacred texts, the marginalization of esoteric sects, the burning of Gnostic gospels. By the time Western religion fully crystallized, reincarnation had been buried, filed away as heresy or paganism, and with it, an entire cosmology of human purpose, memory, and destiny was lost to time, but not completely. In the East, it endured. In Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, reincarnation remained a cornerstone of spiritual philosophy. So why did the West abandon it, while the East preserved it? What was so threatening about the idea of souls evolving across lifetimes? To understand that, we have to go deeper into the very nature of control, identity, and fear. Because the real reason reincarnation was erased isn't about theology. It's about power. And we're about to uncover how it all connects. The soul as a threat to authority. Imagine a world where you don't just live once, but hundreds, even thousands of times. A world where your soul is ancient, layered with memory, trauma, wisdom, and secrets. Now ask yourself, what kind of system could control a being like that? That's the question the early architects of Western religious power had to answer. You see, the idea of reincarnation doesn't just suggest life after death. It liberates the soul from fear. It says, you are not bound to a single, fleeting shot at salvation. You are not at the mercy of one choice, one baptism, one priest. You are an eternal being in the middle of your own sacred journey. And more importantly, you are responsible for your evolution. This changes everything. A soul on a personal journey doesn't need an institution. It doesn't need middlemen. It doesn't need guilt as a motivator or hell as a punishment. If reincarnation is real, then you hold the map, and no one can sell you the path to heaven. That kind of self-empowerment was dangerous. Let's look at Origen again. His teachings didn't just flirt with reincarnation, they embraced it. He believed souls existed long before birth, and that our suffering or blessings were tied to our past deeds. In his view, God was not a punisher, but a cosmic gardener, tending to the growth of souls across lifetimes. But this gentle theology posed a threat, because it didn't rely on fear. It didn't push the idea of eternal damnation. It made salvation a process, not a transaction. And for a growing church that was rapidly consolidating power, that was unacceptable. So, by 553 AD, under pressure from imperial politics and religious factions, the Second Council of Constantinople anathematized the idea of pre-existence, and by proxy, reincarnation. This wasn't just a theological decision, it was a political maneuver, an effort to reshape the human soul into something that could be managed, punished, redeemed, controlled. Over time, reincarnation was reframed as paganism. The stories of spiritual evolution through lifetimes were scrubbed from the canon, and the Western psyche began to adopt a new myth, that we live once, we die, and we are judged forever by a single life. Think about that. One life, one chance, one mistake, and you're lost. It's not just terrifying, it's paralyzing, and that fear is incredibly effective. But cracks remained. The mystics, the heretics, the esoteric schools, they kept the memory alive. Through whispers, symbols, and hidden texts, they remembered that our souls are not linear, but spiraling, that life isn't a test, it's a lesson, over and over, until we remember who we are. This is where the story starts to split, between the version we were told and the version that was buried. Next, we'll peel back another layer, because once you accept that reincarnation was removed deliberately, the next question becomes, what else have they hidden? Reincarnation and the mechanics of memory. Here's the paradox no one wants to talk about. If reincarnation is real, why don't we remember our past lives? The short answer, we do, just not with the mind. Memory is not a filing cabinet, it's a frequency. Think of the soul as a radio, tuned into a new station every lifetime. The music changes, the setting shifts, but the device, the essence, remains the same. Under hypnosis, in dreams, through deja vu, or deep meditation, People have glimpsed lives they never lived in this body, languages they've never studied, pain from wounds never inflicted. Even children, barely old enough to speak, have recounted lives with startling detail, verified names, cities, deaths. This isn't fantasy. It's been documented, studied, and archived, just not widely publicized. Why? Because remembering would shatter the illusion that we are small, that we are only this. There's another layer to the cover-up, though, one even deeper than doctrine. Reincarnation breaks the illusion of separateness. If you've lived as a beggar, a queen, a prisoner, a warrior, a mother, a murderer, then who are you really? And who is your enemy? If every face would have once been yours, if every victim and villain are just souls on the same path, where does judgment end and compassion begin? That kind of truth is dangerous in a world that thrives on division. By removing reincarnation from mainstream belief, the narrative of spiritual scarcity took hold. Limited time, limited chances, limited worth. And thus, the endless cycle of shame and salvation became profitable, spiritually, politically, and economically. But here's the twist they didn't see coming. Truth survives. Reincarnation never vanished. It simply hid in symbols. Take the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, found in Egyptian temples, Greek philosophy, even alchemical texts. It's the eternal return, the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The phoenix, consumed by flames, only to rise again. Rebirth in mythic form. Even Christian resurrection stories, if seen through a different lens, echo the soul's recurring journey. Die, transform, ascend. The idea was never fully destroyed, just distorted. Mystery schools across Europe kept the flame alive. Rosicrucians, Hermetics, Cathars. The church labeled them heretics. Many were tortured, killed, erased. Why? Because they knew that if people remembered their eternal nature, they wouldn't bow to fear. They would awaken. And now, in our time, something strange is happening. More and more people are having spontaneous past life memories, synchronicities, soul recognition, unexplainable talents or phobias. It's as if the veil is thinning, because the soul doesn't forget. It waits. Waits for the moment you stop asking, is this all there is? And start remembering, I've been here before. In the next section, we'll go beyond theory. You'll learn how to reconnect with your soul's hidden story and what it means for your life right now. How to remember who you were and who you are. So, what do you do with all of this? It's one thing to hear the theory, to feel the resonance of truth when we talk about eternal souls, hidden memories, and cycles of rebirth. But how do you access that deeper part of yourself? How do you remember? Here's the first secret. You don't need to force it. You just need to listen. Reincarnation memory doesn't arrive like a thunderclap. It shows up in fragments, glimpses, reactions that don't make sense, obsessions with certain cultures, time periods, or names, dreams that leave you shaken, phobias with no origin, talents that seem to come from nowhere. Start there. Technique 1. Past life. Journaling. Begin with a simple ritual. Light a candle, sit quietly, and ask yourself, what has always felt strangely familiar to me? Write whatever comes. Don't judge it. Let the pen flow. Ask more. What places feel like home? though I've never been? What kind of person do I instantly trust or distrust, and why? What recurring dreams or symbols have followed me since childhood? Over time, patterns emerge. These are your soul's fingerprints. Technique 2. Meditation with intention. Before sleep, or in a deep meditative state, pose a single question to your subconscious. Show me who I've been. You may receive visions, names, colors, emotions. Even if it feels like imagination, don't dismiss it. The veil between lives is thin in altered states. You're tuning the radio. Technique 3. Regression and hypnosis. Guided past life regression, led by trained practitioners, has opened countless people to vivid, emotionally charged experiences. Sessions often bring catharsis, especially when linked to unexplained trauma or repeating life patterns. But even outside of formal regression, hypnotic audio tracks or deep visualization can be powerful tools. Practice caution, not fear. Sometimes what emerges is heavy, emotional, painful. You may discover wounds you've carried across lifetimes or karmic loops you're repeating. This is where compassion becomes critical. Don't judge what you uncover. You're not here to relive the past. You're here to liberate it. Applying this knowledge in daily life. Understanding reincarnation isn't just mystical, it's transformational. That difficult relationship, it might be karma playing out. That inexplicable calling, a purpose rekindled from another life. That fear you can't shake, a lesson you haven't yet healed. But now, instead of being trapped by these experiences, you can engage with them, heal them, change the pattern. This belief shifts how you view mistakes, grief, and even death. No longer are these final. They're chapters in a larger narrative. Your story doesn't end when your body does. It evolves. You become more compassionate, less reactive. You see people not as enemies or strangers, but as fellow travelers, some old friends, some old teachers. Every encounter holds meaning, and perhaps most importantly, you stop rushing because you realize you have time, not to waste, but to grow. You are not lost, you are returning, and the soul always finds its way home. The truth they couldn't bury forever. They tried to erase it, buried it beneath doctrine, branded it heresy, burned the scrolls, rewrote the teachings, silenced the mystics. But reincarnation was never truly forgotten. It lived on, in symbols, in whispers, in the space between dreams. And now, it's surfacing again. Because truth is not something that can be destroyed. It can only be delayed. You are not just this name, this face, this single lifetime. You are the echo of countless lives, shaped by ancient joys and wounds. You've been the hero, the villain, the seeker, the lost. And through it all, you've been becoming you, again and again. The removal of reincarnation from Western religion wasn't just an act of censorship. It was a calculated shift, designed to make you forget your power, your continuity, your responsibility, because a soul that knows it's eternal can't be controlled. But now you remember, not everything, not yet, but enough. Enough to start asking deeper questions, enough to begin healing, enough to live not in fear of judgment, but in pursuit of growth. So I'll leave you with this. What if the people in your life aren't here by chance? What if your greatest challenge is a lesson you chose long ago? And what if the moment you're living right now is the one your soul has been waiting for. If this stirred something in you, don't ignore it. Like, subscribe, and most importantly, keep seeking, because the path didn't begin here, and it won't end here either.